Sarah said before that she thought she was waffling. I'd hate to see her be precise. Okay. Final run home, folks. We've got half an hour to go and we've saved some of the good oil until last. I'm going to invite Thuy Nguyen and Kristen Davis up to join us up here for our last hurrah. So Thuy works for DataGene. She's one of the scientists there. She was previously a scientist with Agriculture Victoria, and she has been quite instrumental in setting up the GINFO herds through DataGene. And I didn't realise this, but she's also one of the architects of the genomic ABV into heat tolerance, which is the only one of its type in the world. Is that correct? Go us. Go us. The Lamborghini of ABVs. Fun fact, Thuy was an aquaculturist. I got that right?
Yes.
An aquaculturist in a previous life. So she knows lots about fish. Kristen comes from Gippsland. She's currently working as a regional extension officer with the GippsDairy team. It's one of the groups of people that have put together today. She's got both a bachelor and a master's in agricultural science. One of the things that she is involved in is she works in the animal performance cohort of regional extension officers, and she has a very specific focus on the role of genetics in farm improvement. So without further ado, ladies, welcome, and let's get us home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon. Can I have my slides up, please? So John has mentioned in my previous life, I was an aquaculture geneticist. And being in that area, I felt like a person who walked along a muddy road and it got almost run over by a bus called cattle genetics. I feel aquaculture is always behind the world in many ways, and especially in this case, dairy cattle. And my dream was to be able to hop on that bus. And thankful to Jenny Price, who took me on that bus in 2013, where I started with GINFO project and then moving on, working on development of heat tolerance ABV. Now, I need someone in the audience with, grey hair, probably, to tell me whether my dream, I have a good reason to be, having had that dream during my previous life. So probably Anthony, you on the first table, the excitement of you being in that bus and intimidating me during the day when you have only a handful of breeding values received on a sheet of paper, and now you got 50 at your fingertips. Can you share with me your thinking over the developments of ABV for dairy cattle in Australia, and what would excite you in the next 5 to 10 years, for example?
Thanks, Thuy. I'm disappointed, firstly, that you selected me on the grey hair basis. I understand the maturity and experience basis, but I thought there was a couple of gents in the room that could have stepped up in front of that. But I guess just trying to be somewhat concise, if I can be, I'll only take 15 or 20 minutes. I think when we look at, genetics improvement and herd improvement, the reality is it's been going on for centuries. But I guess the tools that the tools we use today have changed a great deal. My experience in, particularly the cattle genetics and herd improvement is, when I reflect back to the early 80s, when we had the first ADHIS or ABVs being published. In that era, we were basically given, a set of production traits, realistically, protein, fat. It might have been fat first, then protein, I think. And, realistically, they were the only, tools or traits that we had to really measure performance. When we got to somewhere in around about mid-90s, I think it was, we introduced an Australian Selecting Index, which was really some weighting around volumes of milk. But at that point, from a production point of view, that's what we're utilising. We had introduced other traits, such as the likes of workabilities or conformation traits to somewhat, suggest where we're going. But the reality is, there was very little to no productivity, economic values associated with those other traits at that point. I'm going to take a stab, and I think we sort of got to maybe around about early 2000s, I think, when we introduced APR, Australian Profit Ranking. That's sort of when we'd sort of incorporated a few other traits into that. So I guess when I think about that, we then moved on to BPI, and what are we, 5-6 years into BPI or somewhere around that period. I reflect to just a comment that John Morton made earlier this morning, and I guess the big word that I took out of John's presentation was reliability. Our ability to be able to predict no matter which trait it is. And I think today, Thuy, when you think about the work that you've done on heat tolerance, but the tools that we have for those traits and performance indicators that we can't see, as whether we're producers or service providers, we can't see heat tolerance. We often can't see, fertility. But today we've got a whole raft of traits that have got a great deal more depth of science behind them to assist us in preempting where we're going. I guess for me, Thuy, I think the second part of your question was, what does 5 and 10 look like? I think 5 and 10 look like, for me, I guess around some of the words that we've already heard today about sustainable, around how we're ensuring that we're maintaining, or mindful of emissions and the like. So for me, some of those sorts of traits and indicators that can really assist us in ensuring that, what we are doing as service providers and producers are taken into account. So, hopefully, Thuy, that's a little bit of an indication of what you're looking for. But for me, I think it's really an exciting space to think, it wasn't that long ago that we had very limited pieces of data and traits to give us some direction, whereas where we are today, we've got enormous support through the science and technology that the likes of yourself bring to us. So Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And John gave me the Lamborghini heat tolerance. Now I'm driving a Rolls-Royce on single-step genomics and environmental index, very much to the point that Anthony were hoping to have in the next 5 to 10 years. So my first topic is the tool that we produced in the past year to have genomic evaluation for red breed genomics, for red breeds. So over a number of years, we try our best to produce this, what we call genomic breeding values for red breeds group. And because of small size of the population of the breeds, it's very difficult to get a reliable prediction. So reliability, again, whether people can use the breeding value when it's low reliabilities. It hasn't been possible until recently when dairy bioscientists developed a model called single-step genomics and passed on to us for trial. What this single step actually does is telling us, instead of doing multiple steps like hosting and jersey, you try to combine the genotype, the pedigree, and performance records all together in one run and make it possible. So this method actually become a gold standard in genomic evaluation these days. And this is the first time that we apply in Australian dairy cattle. For red breeds, we also use a larger or higher density chip, which have 64% more markers compared to that we use for Holstein and Jersey. And we did evaluate milk fat, protein, and cell counts, the 4 traits, and also relevant indices. Through a number of test private releases, plus an enormous amount of effort put into integrating international information into Australian evaluation, we have first officially released the breeding values in August 2021. And for this year, DataGene planned to have 3 public releases plus 3 interim private releases in between, as you're seeing on the screen there. In the first test private release in December 2020, which was only for Aussie Red, we see an average lift in reliability of meal fat and protein about 10% for bulls across the population. You see the green line is the run with genomics, and the yellow lines are reliabilities of the run without genomics. And you could see that with genomics, reliability has improved a lot, especially for the younger group of bulls, the one towards the left with less progeny. And that can be elaborated further in this slide. You have 4 traits: protein, cell count, BBI, and HWI on the x-axis, and the y-axis is reliabilities. And those dark blue bars are reliability of conventional runs. It means the run without genomics, without any genotype at all. And these are the reliabilities for the traits that have genomics included, which means genotype of animal will be included in the runs. And as you can see, for protein, we have a lift of 16% in reliabilities, and cell count is 18%. In PBI, it's 9%, and in HWI, about 6%. The indices, because have a mix of traits with genomic and without genomic, that's why it's lower than protein and cell count. And that actually is quite significant. And with red breed genomic, there's several ways that you can access the result. One is through DataVat. If you have an account, you log in, you can see your bulls and cows. Also, there are pathways where you can access the dashboard of genomics service providers if they are testing the animals for you. So that is about red breed genomics. The second topic today is on the environmental index. I temporarily call it. It's under development. It's not an official name, so my apologies. The name happened to be changed in the future. A bit of context. I don't know why the slide got a bit squashy there, but sorry. The Dairy Australia Sustainability Framework has set a target to reduce emissions intensity at farms by 30% by 2030. This target and the progress will be reviewed and hopefully will be completed this year, by the end of this year. But it doesn't matter what, it shows that we are proactive in this area. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet for it, and it requires multiple approaches to achieve the target. And in that multiple strategies, it doesn't matter what, you need to improve animal health in combination with management of pasture, management of waste, try to generate energy on farms, manage your energy on farms, for examples, or use feed additives. Genetic improvement is recognized one of the most cost-effective strategy over reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I think it's best for me to invite a farmers from audience. So Michelle, expert, can you please put your farmer's hat on and tell me and the audience in your carbon report, what actually the main drivers for carbon emission on farm, and do you have any abatement strategy in your mind to have that report look a bit better? And what does it actually mean in terms of your business, daily business? Thank you.
Thanks, Thuy. I suppose, so we run a farm in South Gippsland at Carnbar South, and the first time I really looked at my carbon report is when my bank said to me that in 3 years' time, I'm going to have to give her, as part of my annual assessment, a record of the carbon emissions from our property. So I'm going to have to be able to account for the emissions released from our farm to her as part of our annual reviews. So I thought I'd better start looking at this report. And I kind of used to have this idea that it was about nitrogen use and it was about planting trees and looking after our rivers and creeks, which we thought we were doing a pretty good job of. But when I look at our report, the main thing that drives emissions on our farm is how many guts we've got rolling around the pastures. So I need to make sure that every set of 4 legs that's running around our pastures is really productive to be able to reduce emissions intensity for our farm. And that's started a whole lot more questions. And one of them is, what of this mix do I need to use to be able to make improvements and to be able to record that and give that to my bank next time we want to be able to borrow some money?
Thank you, Michelle. So very well captured what it means at farm, and obviously it will give you the direction where could you target most effective way to reduce emission at farm. So while recognizing the 2 indices that we have in Australia, BBI and HWI, have been doing a great job in reducing emission intensity at farm already at herd level. But the question is whether we can do more. And the answer is yes. In the past few years, dairy bioscientists and recently DataGene has been working with Abacus Bio New Zealand to come with, and we propose an index, and I say environmental index, that could help to reduce emissions intensity by 2050 in hosting about 6.3%, in Jersey 7.3%, and in red about 4.4%. And I would like to reiterate that this is herd reduction in emissions intensity. It's not everything. It's just about the efficiency of cows. What this actually means, the index, how it interacts with BBI. So if this index was going to be used, you will see a faster gain than BBI for reduction in greenhouse gas emission and production. For hosting, you will see a slower gain than BBI for mastitis, cell count, and fertility. In Jersey, it's similar, but it's slightly different in a way that fertility will be declining. Unfortunately, it is a nature of an index. You can't have one size fit all sometimes. But if you wish to breed for reduced greenhouse gas emissions and improve fertility, you still have plenty of options of bulls to choose for. And this is our plans. In the best case scenario, we will hope around March to have a decision from the DataGene Genetic Evaluation Standing Committee and the board. And moving forwards, in March and April, we would like to consult all of you in the industry bodies, AI companies, research societies, genomic service providers, and all farmers on the rollout of this index. Around May to June, we would have an internal test run developing communication materials. And in July, we hope to have a private release and aiming for an August public release. That's the best case scenario. And if there is a fallover, it would be December. So to sum up, what I was saying in the last few slides was we, DataGene and Dairy Bio, always strive to improve our product and services through implementing innovative sciences. And DataGene will look forward to our contribution in reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the implementation of the environmental index. All of this work cannot be done alone, so we embrace all the collaborations with Dairy Bio. Dairy Bio cannot make the recipe and pass to us without the data, which is ingredient from the farmers. we bake the cake, but no one delivers, so we need genomic service provider, bull company, to deliver this cake to our farmers. So we embrace and we'll continue to embrace our collaboration for betterment of the industry. Thank you. I probably move that.
Thanks very much, Thuy. I appreciate it's always very hard being the last person to speak on a day like this, so hopefully I can keep you guys engaged and have a bit of a chat about the extension offerings that we do have at Dairy Australia in collaboration with DataGene. So today we've heard a lot about how genomics can help to benefit farmers and improve their productivity and profitability. And I'm here to talk to you today about the ways that we can increase adoption and how we can support farmers to do so. So as I said, this has been a collaborative effort between Dairy Australia and DataGene, forming a project team to develop the extension offerings that I will talk about today. Can I possibly have my slides up? Thank you. So extension is a bit of a weird beast at times, and quite often people say to us, what is extension? So I thought I would provide a definition from APEN. So extension is about working with people in a community to facilitate change in an environment that has social, economical and technical complexity. This is achieved by helping people to gain the knowledge and confidence so they want to change, and providing support to ensure it is implemented effectively. So if we break that down a little bit more, the idea of extension is we really want to help facilitate change on farm. And we appreciate that farmers are very much so in a situation that is all socially, economically and technically complex. So we need to be able to provide them knowledge and the confidence to want to change, and also providing them with the support so that they can change over time in an effective manner. We have aimed to try and do this through the extension offerings that we have developed, sort of providing an environment where individuals, no matter what stage in their journey of genomics they're in, they'll have a capacity to learn and continue to grow. So, mentioned earlier by Leanne, we have a 3-stage process with our genomic offering. The first one is genomics at a glance, which is very much for those in the initial stages just wanting to learn about the fundamentals of genomics. Secondly, we have genomics in practice, which is a on-farm workshop for those that are ready to test and wanting to learn more about that process. And finally, we have genomics in action, which is the final set of online discussion groups, really about engaging those that are already testing and trying to get more value out of their results. So if we delve more deeply into genomics at a glance, it's a 1-hour session which can be facilitated in many different ways. So it can be with discussion groups, it can be online, it can be at social nights. We're fairly adaptive with the way that it can be presented. And obviously being a short, sharp session, we do have the availability to incorporate it into other Dairy Australia programs, such as Heifers on Target and In Charge Fertility. Secondly, we have genomics in practice, which is the the on-farm day, which is sort of around half a day, sort of 9:30 till 2:30. And this is really about getting farmers hands-on and learning the real fundamentals of genomics, how to take a sample, how to look at results, how to look them up on DataVat, and the actual technicalities of what you do with those results once you do receive them. This will be on a host farm that has actually taken some genomic samples and really taking a look at their samples to see what the next steps are for that farmer. Finally, we have genomics in action, which I mentioned earlier is the online discussion group sessions for farmers that are already testing. So this is really about a collaborative place where farmers can come together and start to learn from one another in a shared environment to really gain as much value as possible from their genomic testing. So it will not only be farmers, but we will also be bringing in subject matter experts in times when they might be needed. Quite a few of you probably received some communications from Michelle. So expressions of interest are currently open for Genomics in Action, and we're really wanting to get as many farmers that are already testing involved. So if you want to spread that widely through your communities to the farmers that are already testing, that would be greatly appreciated. I do have some flyers up the back in case you didn't receive that information from Michelle, or we can always send that back through to you if you would like that. We do have a date for our first session, which is on the 17th of March, and it'll be a sort of a lunchtime session from 12:30 till 2:30. It'll be hosted by Rob Cooper, who's just out there. And we'll be covering off things such as discovering the full potential of genomic testing for your dairy farm, what the possible uses of the genomic results are, and also testing and submitting information, and how do we make it the most streamlined and efficient process. I thought I'd take you through a little bit of opportunities where we can collaborate with you guys and share from sort of a regional development program, part of Dairy Australia, how we run events so that you can gain a bit of a better understanding of what we do. So when it comes down to a workshop, sort of 6 weeks out, we're looking to book in venues and set up the event in Salesforce to manage registrations and all that sort of stuff, as well as organising resources. 4 weeks prior, we're booking venues and also locking in advertisement and stuff to get the ball rolling of people registering for events. 2 weeks prior, we are developing a run sheet and working fairly closely with that subject matter expert to get an idea of how the day might run and make sure that it runs smoothly. And we're also monitoring RSVPs to ensure we're getting the best engagement. 1 week prior, we're confirming speakers and booking in catering and sending out reminder text messages and emails to all those that have registered. The day of the event, we're highly trained in facilitation through Dairy Australia, so we're there to help support that conversation and try and get the most out of the audience that is there and make sure that they have the best learning environment. And we're also there to help do the event setup, event pack up and evaluation. And post those workshops, we do send out additional resources and support for farmers when that is available. So how can we, as an RDP, collaborate with you? Obviously, I've shown you that process of how we run an event. I want you guys to have a bit of a think about how we could join forces with you to try and run an event with your customers. We're fairly flexible in what we do, and by no means is the diagram that I put up before the way it has to be, but we're very willing to collaborate and try and make an event that suits you and your business, but the only requirement is that we have to have a minimum of 12 people in that event at any given time. We do have a whole range of subject matter experts already trained to deliver the extension offerings that we do have. So there's quite a range of us from Dairy Australia and DataGene that can deliver nationally. There's also Shane Gardner, who can deliver in Dairy SA and Westvic Dairy. Leanne Monks, that you heard from earlier today, can deliver in Subtropical. And we have Mike Rose from Farm West in WA. Just wanting to chat to you a little bit about some of the upcoming genomic events that we do have coming up, and you're more than welcome to register and get involved. So first of all was what I mentioned earlier, which is Genomics in Action, which is the first online session on the 17th of March, running from 12:30 till 2. And like I said, if you could spread that widely between your networks of those that are already testing, that would be greatly appreciated. Secondly, we have the first pilot sessions of genomics in practice that will be taking place in South Australia, the first one on the 29th of March in the central region of SA, and secondly, the 30th of March in the southeast region of SA. We have our next communications plan, which is coming up in May, and this one's very much going to be focused around the extension offerings that we do have and getting farmers to attend those sessions and make sure that they can get the most value out of what we do have to offer. And finally, the GippsDairy muster, which is the first sort of really large event that GippsDairy is going to be holding this year on the 5th of May. And it's going to encompass a whole bunch of different topics, but genomics will be one of those featured. So looking into that into a bit more depth, as I said, it's on the 5th of May and it will be in the MID region in Denison, and it'll be a whole day event on farm. We'll have some fairly key speakers, including Nola Heffernan, who's from Ireland and is very well known for her involvement in HR and management. We have Richard Eckard, who works in the sustainable ag space. Rachel Robertson, who a few of you may know, but she did an Antarctic expedition and does a lot of leadership coaching now. And Matt Harms, who's a very well-known consultant in Gippsland. We'll be exploring a whole bunch of different topics across the day, and as I mentioned, genomics is one of these. So this session will be between myself, Pete Williams, and Beth Scott, and we're going to have Andrew Cavill coming over from Dairy SA to chat about his journey with genomics. So I do have a QR code there. If you are interested in attending, you're more than welcome to come along. So for further information, I just wanted to have a chat about our RDPs. So some of you may not be aware that Dairy Australia has regional arms, and there's 8 of those across the country, and they're all in the main dairying regions of Australia. So we've got subtropical, and so within those regions we have animal performance REOs who look after the areas of animal performance. So in subtropical, that's Andrea. In Dairy New South Wales, that's Jane. Murray Dairy is Ross Reed, who's sitting right there. Gippsland, it's myself. Dairy Tas, we have Elizabeth Mann. In West Vic, we have Debbie Twiss. Dairy SA is Trish Eates, and in Western Dairy is Indy. So I really encourage you to reach out to these RDPs. There's some contact details below. If you are interested in getting involved in any of these extension offerings, feel free to contact them to organise a day with your organisation, or you're more than welcome to attend some of the days that we do run ourselves. So the best way for you to find out about what is coming up next is our events calendar, which is located on the Dairy Australia website. And what you can do there is actually filter. So if you click on the regions button and put in the region that you do come from, it'll filter for the events that are only in the region that you wish to attend to. And it'll have all events that are coming up within the foreseeable future. And secondly, there's another opportunity to stay in touch with all of our communication streams that we do have. So pretty much every region has an e-news that comes out fortnightly, and there's always a list of events that are coming up with the registration link that you can utilise to register. We also do have monthly newsletters that are more in depth around specific topics that come out both in hard copy and email. And finally, most of us have a Facebook page where we always post about upcoming events as well as relevant information that's coming out of Dairy Australia. Finally, we do have some genomics resources that no doubt some of you have already heard about, but we do have a table up the back with the resources that we do have available. So right from SOPs and how to take a sample through to fact sheets that are explaining what our genomic offerings are, as well as tea towels and mugs and all that sort of stuff. And for further information, if you are struggling to get in contact with your RDP, you're more than welcome to contact myself or Steph directly, and we'll point you in the right direction to help you get involved with genomics extension. And finally, with some feedback, I've got some sheets on the table which I'd really appreciate you filling out if you are a service provider and want to get involved. It's just about giving us some contact details so that we can get in contact with you to actually run some events if you're really interested in, or if you want to attend any in the future. If you can let us know, what region you're from, how you want to get involved, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kristen. Thanks, Thuy. Am I on? Yes, I'm on. Folks, we've got time for one question. Is there anyone got a burning question for either Thuy or Kristen? No? We're all good? All good? Okay, terrific. Must have been incredibly well explained, which it was.